welcome to everyone. I'm Mike Brunick, Vice President of the MBEF Board of Directors. And the board is thrilled to host you tonight as a means of sharing about the strength of our Manhattan Beach Public Schools. A special welcome to Dr. Karina Gerger, Principal of Maricosta High School, for having us here tonight. So first, I'm going to start off with a little bit of context. Who are we? The MBEF Board of Directors is a group of 30 community volunteers who believe in high-quality public education. We work diligently and collaboratively to ensure that our students have opportunities that would not otherwise be available in our schools if based solely on the state budget. Second, a bit more about me. I've personally served on the MBEF board for 5 years now as a volunteer in many capacities, including as a member of the Grants Committee. But my connection to Manhattan Beach goes back much further. I attended Penny Camp, MBI for middle school, and my mom actually grew up here and attended Manhattan Beach schools too, both of us Maricosta graduates. Work eventually took me to New York and the Bay Area, but I always knew that I wanted to end up back in Manhattan Beach with my family. My wife Emily is a teacher in MBUSD. We look forward to our 3 kids being third-generation Maricosta graduates in the years to come. Now, about all of us. My story is not unique to Manhattan Beach. There are many homegrown and longtime supporters of our schools in our small town. But our town, all of us, and our emphasis on our public schools is truly unique. We've come together in incredible ways to develop our schools into a model for public education. What you will hear today is not only how our schools have excelled, but also how we have faced challenges along the way and how we continue moving forward to positively impact education in our district. Tonight's agenda will include a presentation from our superintendent, Dr. John Bose, on district successes and initiatives. In just his 2nd year leading our district, Dr. Bose has welcomed new trustees to the board, hired new administrators at several school sites, and welcomed numerous teachers and staff to the MBUSD family. It is apparent that his ability to empower and collaborate with his team has had a tremendous impact on maintaining MBUSD's high standards. Next, Dr. Irene Gonzalez-Castillo will share the work that is happening to meet the MBUSD board goals, particularly related to maximizing the academic success of all students. Finally, MBEF Executive Director Hilary Mahan will explain more about how MBEF works with MBUSD as a partner in ensuring our students have access to strong, well-rounded academic programs, along with an array of enrichment opportunities. You will also learn about MBEF's budget, the criteria for grants to the district, and how the priorities of all of our stakeholders come into play. At the end of the presentation, you will also have the chance to share your priorities with us and get answers to your questions. As we're recording the event tonight, we ask that you please hold your questions till the end, and we will address them all at once. And with that, let's welcome Dr. Bose.
Well, thank you, Mike, and welcome one and all. It is a pleasure to be with everyone this evening, and I want to tell you how much I enjoy the opportunity to be at events sponsored by the Manhattan Beach Education Foundation. Had a couple of really wonderful evenings earlier this year, meeting new families, and just like tonight, was able to share with them the great news about a wonderful district and about the important partnership with the foundation, which really helps differentiate the teaching and learning experience for our students here in Manhattan Beach. I'm in my 33rd year as an educator and my 7th year as a superintendent, 5 in the high-performing Davis Joint Unified School District, and proud to be in my 2nd year here leading Manhattan Beach, a destination district, and we intend to keep it that way. I taught kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, and my own children are through elementary, middle, and high school, through college, and launched in life. So I know as a parent and an educator what it takes to best prepare our students, our children, to be confident and capable for success in college, career, and life. And I am regularly highly impressed by the top quality teaching and the learning I see our students engaged in my classroom visits at all 8 of our campuses. One of the very special things about Manhattan Beach is the small town community feel that we have on all of our campuses and throughout town. We're just under 5,900 students across a preschool, 5 elementaries, a middle school, and a high school. And we're happy to host everyone this evening right here on the MiraCosta campus. Our theme for this year is who we are, and we want to be able to tell our story about our many successes, about where we're heading. And just as we tell our story, we want to be able to make sure that our students on their pre-K through 12th grade journey through our district are able to leave and to be able to confidently tell their own story as they move towards college, career, and life. I mentioned we're a destination district. I want to congratulate our recent winners of the California Distinguished School Award. And all 5 of our schools have received this award in the last decade. California Distinguished School Recognition is a particularly unique accomplishment that only a few hundred elementary schools across the state of California have been able to achieve this year. And not just our elementary schools. Our district is proud to be known for a wide range of exemplary programs. In addition to National Blue Ribbon certification, we are a green district, and we take our work to try and make Manhattan Beach an environmentally responsible set of schools and district seriously. If your child is interested in debate, we have an internationally known award-winning Model United Nations program. Likewise with music. If you've never been able to attend an orchestra, band, or choral performance, I would invite you to do so. They are top-tier performances, and we have even won a Grammy here in Manhattan Beach. I would love to tour anyone through our new athletic facility. It is a facility akin to a D1 and C2A athletic complex, and it's the athletic facility our students deserve. And we have a long storied tradition of great athletes and great teams, and we always want to win with honor. That's also an important part of our program. So, you want to learn more about the many accolades our district has received, or about the over 125 clubs your student can be involved in here at MiraCosta for just about anything they're interested in under the sun. We'd invite you to learn more about the district, and I'm happy to speak with any parent about MBUSD. We have a very special award that was given to Teresa Nielsen, chemistry teacher at MiraCosta High School. She was a Los Angeles County Teacher of the Year and joins many other teachers over the past 4 decades who have been county or California State Teacher of the Year. She brings a particular passion and sparkle and engagement to her classroom and her laboratory. And I see that in many of our classrooms across all of our campuses. And all this work is to prepare our students for success here at our elementary schools, at Manhattan Beach Middle, at Costa, and in top-tier colleges across the United States. And you can see from this map just how widely distributed our students are locally, coast to coast, east to west, north to south. But our students regularly are accepted to and attend UCs, Cal States, Ivy Leagues, and other top-tier colleges and universities across our country. Our district is led by our Board of Trustees, Board President Kathy Graves, Vice President Jen Fenton, Clerk Wish Weinstein, and Trustee Tina Shapuri. We have a great governance team, and our administrative leadership team is excited to work with them. And you can tune in to our board meetings on the first and third Wednesday of every month virtually, but I'd also invite you to join us in person at the district office in our boardroom. And meetings start at 5 p.m. The board provides direction about our 5 board goals for the district, and I want to spend a little bit of time on each of those, but I particularly want to focus on our first goal, which is maximizing the academic success of all students. And that begins at the pre-K, transitional kinder, and kindergarten level with an age-appropriate and very personalized learning experience. As I said, I taught kinder, first, and second grade, and those grade levels are particularly close to my heart. And when I walk through our elementary campuses, these are the schools I would want my own children to be in if they were school age now. But we want to make sure that each child's unique interests are developed and that their specific academic needs are met, and that they're also appropriately challenged, because we mean it when we say we want to maximize potential and the academic success of each and every student in Manhattan Beach Unified. An important part of that is making sure that we've developed a climate of care where students feel safe and secure on campus and in their classrooms. And a focus on the social and emotional well-being of our students includes knowing how to advocate for oneself, how to stand up to bullies, how to be a good friend, how to be a leader, and also how to be a team member. But it's these two components of maximizing academic success and creating a climate of care that together really help develop this personalized learning experience for our students. There are a number of great new additions to our campuses, courtesy of 2 bonds that were passed, and I want to thank the Manhattan Beach community for bringing $150 million worth of facilities improvements to our campuses. I mentioned the athletic facility. Would love to take anyone on a tour of that. If you haven't driven by Grandview Elementary recently, we are just completing a 3-story administrative and multi-purpose building, and we have a number of new classrooms there. Pennicamp Elementary likewise has new 2-story buildings and a new parking lot, much needed, that just opened within the last 2 weeks. And on the Manhattan Beach Middle School campus right now, we're putting the finishing touches on a new music building. Very intent on making sure that our students and our staff have 21st century learning environments appropriate to their needs here in the 21st century. Maintaining a balanced budget is very important to the district, and we'll spend a little more time on this right now and with Hilary's presentation later this evening. Manhattan Beach continues to do extremely well despite being very low funded by the state of California and the California public school financing system. We are intent on doing the most with our dollars, and the year-over-year funding from the Manhattan Beach Education Foundation plays a critical part in really making a difference for the type of programs and services that our students are able to receive, not just in terms of activities, but also in terms of staff. And it is having enough staff, the right staff, a caring staff that are able to deliver these specialized programs that really enhance the academic work that we're doing. We are strongly advocating for more funding from the state, and in the meantime need to maximize the resources we have in each and every classroom. We also do our best to communicate well and in a timely manner. I would invite everyone to download the new app just out in the month of January. If you go to the Google Play or the Apple Store and type in MBUSD or Manhattan Beach Unified, this great new app will download in just a matter of seconds, and you can select whether you'd like access to one, some, or all of our campuses. And all the information, the important information from our website is now available on your phone. Also, if you've not signed up for the weekly Friday Superintendent newsletter, I would invite you to do so. We take particular pride in highlighting the many great student and staff stories happening across our campuses each and every week. You can email me at superintendent@mbusd.org if you'd like to subscribe to that newsletter. And it's a great way to keep up to date on all the going on activities here in the district. I've talked a couple times about MBEF, and will again highlight what a critical and important and great partner they are to Manhattan Beach Unified. And it's our local partnerships with great community organizations that really make our district a special place. Thanks to MBX, our booster organization, all of our school PTAs, the Los Angeles County Office of Education, our bargaining partners, Connecticut Banking, Beach Cities Health District, and the City of Manhattan Beach, and others. Whether it is day-to-day activities or during times of emergency or great need. We are all there for each other and know we can all rely on each other. Okay, with that, we're going to talk a little more about the personalized learning experience and the excellence in teaching happening in Manhattan Beach, and I would like to introduce our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Dr. Irene Gonzalez-Castillo. So welcome to the podium, Irene.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I feel like I've met many of you over the past few years, but it's great to see you. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, because I do appreciate every time Dr. Bo shares a little bit about his background, just so you know who I am. So this is my 4th year now in Manhattan Beach Unified, and when I started here in Manhattan Beach, I was the Assistant Superintendent in Student Services. And my responsibilities were about student services roles, but also special education and our programming there. And in my role as Assistant Superintendent in Ed Services, I am continuing to support those departments as well. And I also focus in on teaching, learning, instruction, pre-K to 12. And before coming to Manhattan Beach Unified, I worked in Santa Monica Malibu School District for over 20 years, which I can't believe it was that long. But during my time there, I was the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for pre-K to 12, and I was a principal for 9 years and teacher in many different roles. So I feel like one thing that's been very helpful in doing this work here in Manhattan Beach is also drawing from these different experiences and roles I've had in the past. And as Dr. Bo shared, I know we'll hear from Hilary as well, a challenge is also coming in and taking a look at what do we offer currently and how do we continue to move forward with our goals and making sure that everything is at the highest level as far as excellence in our district with the funding that we have. And I think that we've done an amazing job here in Manhattan Beach with making sure that our programs continue. And I know that Hilary will talk more about that in a few minutes. But I wanted just to share a few things with you. Personalized learning. I'm sure you've heard about personalized learning here in Manhattan Beach School District. It's one of actually the reasons why I wanted to be in this district. When I learned about the frameworks that were adopted by this community, it definitely said a lot about what is important for students. And especially being part of a smaller community, we have the resources, we know the students, we have lifelong residents, as we heard earlier from Mr. Brunick as well. People stay in this community, and that history is so important to us. MTSS. So when we think about personalized learning in Manhattan Beach, these are some of the elements, as you can see here on the screen, that we've adopted and we use when we think about programs we want to bring in, instructional practices, professional development, resources. We always want to go back and look at this to see, is this a match? If it's not a match, we should be looking maybe at a different strategy or program, etc. So just to give you some examples, today I met with all of the elementary teachers. It was amazing. I was with them at Pacific, TK to 5, and the principals, and we talked about one of the efforts in our district is about professional learning communities. How do we build a professional learning community in our district? And the reason that's important is because if we do not have agreement around what is essential for all students, how do we again, ensure all students are learning with common assessments and with programming and resources, enrichment opportunities for students. So today we met with all of the teachers to talk about that work and to ensure that we're all on the same page as far as next steps and why we need every single teacher invested. We had our principals share. And some of the examples you see here, just as an example, is I'll go to data informed. This is one of the personalized learning framework elements. When we think about designing curriculum and experiences for our students, we want to make sure we know where are our students individually as far as English language arts, reading development, writing skills, mathematical skills. Do students need additional support? Do they need enrichment or extension opportunities? Well, the data helps us to make those decisions. We also, this year, have launched something called WINS, What I Need Time in Elementary. And this, again, connects to knowing our students, voice and choice, making sure that we are addressing students' needs, what they need during that time of the year, of the day. And this is something we're doing across the schools in elementary school. I'm not sure if you've heard about our MTSS framework. Have you heard about MTSS? I see a few nods. So MTSS, we have a lot of acronyms here, but MTSS, it stands for Multi-Tiered System of Supports. And all of this work we're talking about falls under MTSS. When we talk about win time, we talk about professional learning communities, having agreement around standards and resources. All of that falls under MTSS. You will also see connections as you learn more about our board and district goals. MTSS is there. You'll see it everywhere you look. I also wanted to share that as we think about our work here in Manhattan Beach, we also want to make sure we're looking at continuity of programming and experiences that build for students from preschool, elementary, middle school, high school. So another important piece for us is how do we grow our practices with expert teachers and support. So through the, again, the generosity and the work with MBEF, we have teachers on special assignment called TOSAs. And they are working with teachers and sites on developing very coherent programs, for example, in STEM. We have an amazing STEM program here at Costa. And what our TOSA is doing, her name is Tanya Sanchez, is taking a look at all of our programming from Makerspace, where students in elementary school are presented with engineering challenges, building problem-solving skills, working collaboratively with others, curiosity. How does that build into what we offer at middle school through our STEM wheel with our STEM standalone courses, and how do we encourage students to continue that work as they move on to Miracosta High School? So having these teacher experts is critical in making sure that we have this excellent programs all the way through. Want to make sure I don't miss anything. Let's see, I talked about the MTSS Voice and Choice win, and I talked about the TOSAs, and just so all of you know, we do have teachers in special assignment to support STEM, literacy, and we have 2 in math. So we have one focused on elementary mathematics and one focused on secondary. We also have an English learner TOSA, and also a TOSA specifically working with all sites on our MTSS implementation efforts. So without all of these resources, we wouldn't be able to move the vision forward and make sure we meet all of our goals without that support. What I also wanted to share as you heard a little bit about our board goals 1 and 2, and the second goal is about, again, developing that climate of care. We know that students need to feel included, need to feel that they are a part, and find a way to feel connected to whether it's, whether it's a club or, maybe they're part of the music program. There's so many ways to get involved and feel included here in Manhattan Beach. This is another reason why I wanted to be here. When I heard about the social emotional learning framework that was adopted and supported by the community, I thought this is amazing. So this wheel, you'll see this across our schools. This is a framework that helps guide the social emotional learning skills that we want to build in every student, pre-K to 12. And when you look at that wheel, you can see specific skills that we want to focus in on throughout the year across schools. This is also an example of wonderful parent partnership and community, because we have a district social emotional learning committee that meets together to take a look at how do we implement these skills, how do we support them across the school district, how do we make sure that they're age appropriate from elementary all the way to high school, and also, how do we think about promoting not just one time in the year, but all year long? So one example you'll see here is the Social Emotional Learning Week that took place last year. Was the first time this was held, and again supported by the SEL committee and site teams, and this will continue on this year as well. So we're very excited about that work. I also wanted to share that in educational services, we also work very closely with our special education department, because when we talk about MTSS, we talk about all students. Whether you are a student who also receives special education services, a student who maybe is identified as GATE, we want to make sure we're supporting all students, and special education is part of that work as well. So as you can see, if you do have a student who is receiving special ed services, the student would receive an individualized education plan and services with many providers, whether it's speech and language or specialized academic support. There are several services that could be a part of a student's individualized education plan. And this is another example of where we partner with our families. The SEAC, our Special Education Advisory Committee, is an essential partner in determining where do we go next with programming, where do we need to improve, where are our strengths. And one of the, I think this is my last slide, but one thing I wanted to share is one of my goals for our department in our work in educational services is I want other districts to come to us to see what we're doing. We have to go out, and I talked to Hilary a lot about this, about going outside to get better insight here. I think it's important, so you're not just looking at what we're doing here, but I also want to be a place where other districts are coming to see what is Manhattan Beach Unified doing. One example with Wind Time that I shared, we have a neighboring district. They're going to send a few people to come and see what we're doing at one of our elementary schools. So that's exciting, but we want to see several examples of that happening in our district. And I think that's my last slide. So I'm going to now invite Hilary Mahan, our MBEF Executive Director.
Thank you. Well, I certainly hope that you find Dr. Gonzalez-Castillo's presentation just as inspiring as I do. I feel so fortunate to be able to myself work hand in hand and partner with a district that truly takes the education of our students so seriously. So thank you to Dr. Bose and to Dr. Gonzalez-Castillo for joining us here this evening to be able to share out the wonders of our community. Our foundation is celebrating its 40th year this year. That's 40 years of inspiring our students in the classroom, enriching teaching mechanisms, and really truly meeting the academic excellence that we require and have sought here in our Manhattan Beach community. We do so through a variety of ways, and that's exactly what I'm trying to share with you here tonight. First, let me share that in the 40 years, lots have happened. Mr. Brunick, Mike Brunick, our board vice president, already shared that there's challenges, there's successes, and certainly there are, and we're so proud of every single one of them throughout the way, because it truly shows that it's the dedication of volunteers and parent supporters and a community of educators and people who believe in public education that have brought us to the point we are today. And we're not done, right? another 40 years, and another 40 years after that. But in the beginning, back in 1983, when MBEF started, we also started an endowment shortly after that. And our initial grant in 1984 was for a mere $42,500, really focused on the arts and social emotional support through counseling. Throughout the several decades that followed, we introduced our annual appeal, which you're probably familiar with as well, and the typical ask or suggested donation of each family. We also introduced the Manhattan Wine Auction as an endowment fundraiser. So towards the endowment, we gathered together to drink wine and celebrate our schools all together. When 2000 hit, there was a need for a paradigm shift, and there was a true sense of not only a budget crisis because of budget cuts, but a need to really figure out how are we going to get over this static place. And that paradigm shift occurred with MBUSD, our school district, with our PTAs, and with the Ed Foundation. And it was at that moment in 2002 to 2003 that we were able to truly defined that MBEF is the sole nonprofit that can support educators and programs in our district. And that's when we grew our ask, that's when we grew our grant to the district, and over time it significantly grew as well. Also after those cuts was the time in which we introduced a second appeal because we did not raise enough at that point. Throughout the next decade, we did experience growth and stability. Our endowment finally hit $10 million, which according to our disbursement policy allowed for a disbursement to MBEF to be able to support grants on an annual basis. That continues today, and in fact last year our endowment dispersed over $1.1 million towards our annual grants. So this, and you'll see in just a moment how this works into our funding structure as a nonprofit. We also introduced a parcel tax, and I forgot to mention already that the first attempt for a parcel tax was in 2002 and failed. The second attempt did not occur until 2018, and that did pass by a large percentage in our community. We now have a small parcel tax called Measure MB on our budget, on our tax draw. In addition to that, we had a crisis of number two, which was state funding cuts, and that prompted us to kind of relook with the district and partner with them in terms of where were those cuts going to impact. So we had to actually sit down and collaborate with the district and say, okay, we get it. We want to keep teachers in the classrooms. We're going to have to give up some of the makerspace time. We're going to have to give up some of the time with the library specialist. And that, in fact, was in 2019, and our community came together the next year and raised a significant amount of money, and you'll see that, in fact, we restored our grants in the coming year. I would say that in the time period that we're in now, with the second crisis, as I would call it, of the disruption of our in-person learning because of COVID-19, we truly are in a place of transition. And I say that because while we are receiving more funding from the state because of COVID, we also do, in fact, believe that there will be an impact on state funding in the very near years to come, which will again impact giving in our own school district here as well. And we'll have to figure out how can we engage our community again to be social, to be involved, to really come together and support our foundation in the way that it has in the past 40 years. So this point of transition is really where I see us moving forward. I want to talk a little bit about why we even need a foundation. Why do we need private dollars to help support public education here in California? And really, it is truly because of an initial passage of Prop 13 that dramatically shifted how California funded education. We originally were ranked 5th in the country related to how much we funded our education. After Prop 13 passed, major shifts happened, and in fact, we dropped to 48th at an all-time low. Since then, we have slowly creeped up, and you can see on the national average here, we are finally just barely over the national average, which isn't saying much, unfortunately, but we are slowly creeping our way back up there. And we now, if you look at any given report, we're somewhere ranked between 19th and 35th, dependent upon the adjusted cost of living. But here directly in Manhattan Beach, we have other significant challenges as well. It's not just the fact that California funds education at a low level, it also has to do with how we were when we initially got state funding from the state at that time period. We're what you're considered to be a revenue limit district, which means that we do not raise enough money from our own property taxes to support education per pupil at the level the state says is essential. So while we don't raise enough money, the reason for that is because back when Prop 13 passed, we were a district that was simply K through 8. We did not fund our own education in the community at a high level from property taxes. It was less than 20% at that time. We are locked into that rate. So even as property taxes rise, until they rise above what the state says our minimal amount is for our students, which will be somewhere still within that 20% range, we will always be a revenue limit district. We'll always be supplemented by the state to be able to even get that nominal number. Basic aid districts had a surplus of funding at the time which Prop 13 passed and subsequent legislation, and therefore they continue to have excess funding to be able to keep it year after year after year. And as property taxes elevate, their amount that goes towards education elevates as well. Now, we will be able to switch to a basic aid. We're not locked into it until our 20% of our overall property taxes rises above the state minimum. We anticipate that to be somewhere in the range of 12 plus years, just based on the turnover of our current property values and selling houses and increasing that property tax revenue. Moving on to the local control funding formula, this is another aspect that impacts funding directly for Manhattan Beach. This was introduced in 2013 as a way in which to really create more equity in our per pupil funding throughout the state. And it has increased funding for education overall at a dramatic level, which is why we've even surpassed the state average at this point, or national average at this point. However, it does not necessarily impact Manhattan Beach because we still are receiving the base level. The numbers that you see here on the screen are slightly outdated because they kept them in uniform with other data that I have, but it does show you that if you look at that first row there, that is the base level of funding by grade level that a district will receive within the state of California. A district on top of that might have 20% of their student population that requires additional services through English language learning programs, foster youth, and so forth, will receive supplements on top of that up to 20% if 20% of their population is in fact qualifies for that. Those that qualify higher, or districts that have a higher percentage, and quite frankly, it's actually up to 65% now, receive 65% of the base level average as well. So those supplements added on top are tremendous, which of course you want to create equity so that all students have access to excellence in academics. The trick is all of this funding being spent towards that? And of course, there's the scale of economies, right? So the larger your school system is, the more TOSAs you can have because you have more funding to pay for it and so forth. So as a small district with all of these limitations, Manhattan Beach is certainly infringed by it. One other reason is we are late to initiate a parcel tax. I mentioned that first failure in 2002. We wait until 2018 to try again. It did pass. It's a small parcel of 225, and it does have a sunshine date. It ends in 2024. There was another attempt for a parcel tax as well that I'm sure you all were aware of, Measure A, which was probably more ambitious, in terms of the amount as well as the time period than our community, or obviously was more ambitious than our community would accept, and it did not pass. The parcel taxes that I've really highlighted here are the ones that I want to point out. These are parcel taxes that are in communities similar to ours, with outcomes similar to ours, but they have grown them over time, and you can see just how much more significant they are. San Marino at $13.52 per parcel. That's 13.6% of their district budget. Imagine if we were able to, on top of what we have now, an additional 13.6%. And these are other examples as well. And in our research, what we have found is that any district that has a parcel tax that helps support a district anywhere between 6 and 15% are really the closest to what we would consider adequate per pupil funding that really is going to be able to allow a district to achieve the outcomes that they hope for. When it comes down to it, you might have seen this chart before, this is how it all plays together. You have the state and federal funding in the darkest color. You have those districts that have basic aid and get to keep those excess taxes in the next blue color. You have parcel taxes that layer on top of that. You have other local funding sources like PTAs, of course, city contributions, which our own City of Manhattan Beach is a partner, leases. Santa Monica School District has a DoubleTree Hotel on their property that they're leasing. Imagine the lease revenue that they're getting from that to help support their schools as well. So you'll see us there in the third one up, Manhattan Beach, with our different highlights. And what eventually we'll need to do is continue to try and grow those different colored bars at the end there, because we know that from the state, it's probably not going to happen where we reach the levels of a basic aid district in the near future. And even if we do hit that basic aid level, we'll toggle there for some time before we continue on. So, hence, the reason why MBEF was initiated and the reason why we continue to be so important as a partner with the district. I mentioned that we were founded in 1983. Since that time, MBEF has supported our district with $100 million in grants. This is funding that is not just simply to a general fund. This is funding that has been allocated for specific educational programs, for specific educator roles that we also see the outcomes of. So over time, as this has grown, and you see the dip during COVID, we have been able to build upon programs after program to continue the success of them. So the small grant that initiated in music at the first in 1984 has been built upon until it actually has created the astounding program that we have here at MiraCosta now. Our fundraising efforts are vast, but it really comes down to parent and community support of our annual appeal. We introduced it decades ago. It continues to be the successful mechanism for the majority of the funding that we are able to then grant in the next year back to the district. Our appeal kicks off in conjunction with the start of the school year. It ends the first week of February, coincidentally, right now, and then from there, we continue with other programs and other ways of building that support out. We have our endowment fund, which I mentioned, that does have a disbursement based upon a disbursement policy. We have our community partner program, which engages our business sponsors in the local community as partners with us. We have our Manhattan Wine Auction, which I did mention already, that was initially introduced as an endowment event. Over time, our board had designated 1/3 of the proceeds, and now our board just recently voted that it will be an endowment event again. And 100% of the proceeds from the wine auction, with the exception of a paddle race dedicated to a specific program, will go to the endowment, and hence continue to grow that sustainable source of funding that kicks back every year towards our grants as well. We have Support Our Schools and so forth. Here I've outlined exactly what we are looking at in terms of our percentages of funding, and it looks like one slide just got a little skewed. It is 72%, I believe, of our donations come from the annual appeal. Those are primarily parent donations. We then have our endowment disbursement next at 16.5%, and our community partner program, which also involves our partnership with the Skechers Friendship Walk and so forth, and also large grants that we receive. We do have a very savvy board. Mike mentioned we have 30 members on our board. Many of them are involved in the finance industry, and we are able to also gain interest on investments on a regular basis as well, just based on timing of the funds that come in and when the funds leave. One of the things that we wanted to touch upon tonight as well is just how important it is to have a positive stakeholder relationship. We consider our stakeholders not just the district or the teachers and the educators, but our parents and our community partners and our students as well. So we really use multiple measures to ensure that the grants that we're funding on a regular basis are in fact those that our stakeholders are prioritizing. We have a biennial survey, which you'll actually get to participate in a brief one here tonight. We meet with school principals, we meet with district leaders, we meet with educators themselves. We have conversations with people who call us. We have email correspondence on a regular basis. So we are constantly in communication. But most importantly, we're following the lead of this high-performing district and understanding that the board goals of academic excellence and how we achieve those are truly what are going to impact where our funding should be headed towards. This is just an example of some of our most recent survey results. Elementary parents, if they had to grade or prioritize our current programs, first was class size reduction, second was science lab, third makerspace, PE, music, and library were quite even. Potential programs, expand class size reduction. Foreign language was a possibility, and expanding music as well. For our middle school, class size reduction, music, and elective enhancement and counselors. These truly do help us to define where we're going to allocate the funds. When I talk about the grants in just a moment, I hope you'll see the correlation between what the stakeholders are the priorities here and what we funded for this coming year, or for this current year. Potential programs, again, expanding class size reduction, the elective enhancement, and counseling. High school parent priorities are class size reduction, counselors, school counselors, as well as the college and career center counselors, elective enhancement, and the same goes for if we were to have additional funding available and at our resources. We would love to be able to fund class sizes at a much lower level than they currently are, but that would take significantly more funding than we have been able to raise in a given year. So as time progresses, we hope that we'll be able to transition into that. Our grant-making process is really determined by the amount of funding that we raise on an annual basis. So that annual appeal ends in that first week of February for a very specific reason. We know that we have to be able to tell the district what we plan to fund in the coming year so that they can make decisions related to their resources as well, both people and programmatic resources. Once that appeal ends, we make a decision based on what funding we have, and our allocation decision process begins with our grants committee. That is several months of researching, reviewing data, collaborating with and having discussions, as I mentioned, looking at the surveys and so forth. The board is then presented with the proposed allocation. There's discussion and back and forth. It is finally voted on in May and presented to the MBUSD Board of Trustees. Then MBEF does not actually pay for these grants until the next year when they are actually being utilized in the school year. So what we raise in the 2022-23 annual appeal today is actually funding programs in the 23-24 school year. Our grant-making guidelines are pretty simple and actually pretty unique in the conversations that I have with other education foundations. We believe in academic excellence and personal growth. We believe that programs need to reach as many students as possible, not a limited number. We believe in parity among all of our elementary schools. We believe in programs that have a K through 12 perspective. An example of that is, again, the music program or the STEM programs that Dr. Gonzalez-Castillo mentioned, talking about starting with makerspace and science lab and growing that as children grow as well. We believe in innovation in teaching and learning, and we believe in programs that align with the MBUSD goals and the priorities of our parents and teachers. The reason why I say this is unique is because we really have elevated our support as an education foundation above the majority of other ed foundations, not only in the state, but across the country. The support and the percentage of the budget that our foundation is able to provide towards directed gifts in educational programs and positions is hands down above the percentages that others are as well, especially in our nearby community. And the reason for that is because we are able to come together, I believe, as an entire community to support the educational path of every student versus looking at it as a school-by-school basis. For this current academic year, we supported over $6.1 million worth of programs, and they can be allocated in these different ways: class size reduction, counseling and support, music and the arts, physical education, reading, writing, and libraries, as well as STEM. Again, these are all priorities for our community stakeholders. Our class size reduction as a general grant goes towards funding teacher positions to keep class sizes lower than they would be if the funding wasn't there. It simply is to help class size in general. Dr. Gonzalez-Castillo already talked about the teachers on special assignment. These are true leaders in our community that are the research and development, if you will, department to really ensure that our district is keeping up with best practices and able to assist and support students as well as teachers in those findings. Our educator grants are small-scale grants that educators apply for that can be utilized to really bring something new and innovative to their classroom, or perhaps it's about inclusion, but it's something that is a small scale on a one-time basis that we have a specific committee designated to approve. We also have class size reduction focused at 4th and 5th grade teachers. The reason for that is because the state does support lower class sizes in grades TK through 3rd, but that jumps up in 4th and 5th. So we support the district with more funding to ensure those class sizes do not get too large. Our library resource specialists are some of the favorites on campuses. They are really where they create a hub of warmth and energy and that best place to find the best book and the just right choice for that student. We also have makerspace specialists that are at every school site at the elementary level that Dr. Gonzalez-Castillo talked about in terms of really finding that ability to collaborate, to be creative, to build, to fail, to try again. All of these are skills that are hard skills, but also soft skills that students learn as they proceed throughout their career here. We have string, vocal, and wind music instrument instructors who begin in the 1st and 2nd grade, but really take charge in 3rd grade. We have physical education teachers. Many school districts no longer have PE teachers, and they need to have PE taught at least 100 minutes per week for students, so our teachers come in with actual credentials in physical education to really remind students what it is to be healthy, what it is to be a team player, and learn sportsmanship skills. Science lab teachers. These alternate at the elementary level with our makerspace so that kids are also getting hands-on detailed lab work related to the curriculum in their courses. Class size reduction for 6th and 9th grade is also key, especially for our math, our English, and our humanities grades or courses. School counselors. We talked about the priorities of counseling from our stakeholders. This is one area this year that we were able to double what MBUSD would able to supply at the secondary level. So at MBMS and at MiraCosta, we are able to supply twice as many counselors as our schools would have, if not. Imagine the student-to-counselor ratio without that. There are school districts throughout the state that are 700 to 1 in terms of counseling. Our district is 312, I believe, at the middle school, and just slightly higher than that at the high school. We have a college and career center that is staffed full-time and goes into the evening hours to be able to support our students and families as they find the next best step in where they will go after graduation. And of course, we have our arts and music program. We talked about the elementary music. This is Peter Park, who is our famed orchestra director, who has done a phenomenal job of growing that program. Our jazz bands, our vocal, our choir, all truly amazing programs. And we have a TOSA that's dedicated to creating these STEM pathways, and we have high-level STEM courses available at the high school as well as at the middle school. And a science lab assistant who helps support our teachers in terms of making sure that they can actually create labs and reach the students at that time. Finally, I'll mention zero period. With the later start, I think we have more students than ever taking advantage of zero period. This opens up a 6-period day at MiraCosta at the high school so that students have more opportunities to explore the many electives that are offered, take an athletic course or join a team, and just have more options available to them. So I've mentioned all of the different grants that we are supporting for this year, but we are also getting ready to look at the grants for next year. So if you do have your phone available, you can scan this. It will take you directly to our survey that we are going to be sending out shortly related to your priorities and where you would like to see the funding go for MBEF. And at this time, I want to thank you for coming here this evening. We truly appreciate your time in learning more about MBEF and the partnership with MBUSD. I hope that it gave you a little bit more insights as to how our organization functions, what we represent, the history and the breadth of what we've accomplished over the years, especially in partnership with our school district and our parents and our entire community.